I don't want a flash car. I don't want to flash clothes. I don't want anything. I want to be anti-flash, right? He's that guy reduced to its quintessence. Unapologetically troll-like, ostentatious displays of wealth and arrogance, right? So I'm the anti-Tate. When I finally went outside the BBC and set up a company 3 or 4 years ago, I'm sure most of your listeners probably have their own, many of them, not most, but many of them will have their own companies or will be fully cognizant of what it takes to make it in the sort of the world of free market and entrepreneurship. But for me, that was just absolutely not my lane. And it was my wife who pushed me to do it. And so that was a case of me needing to break out of whatever I was doing and say, do you know what? Whatever you think that is, risky or mysterious or, a bit a spivvy, like just a little bit of judgment, like, oh, I don't want to be one of the yuppie guys, like, we just had an IPO, I've just got my first Maserati, like that, because I'm antagonist, I'm complete that whole mindset. I feel like I'm alienating maybe some of your listeners. Like, it's not my mindset. Like, I'm just like, I almost valorize the opposite of that, to probably an extent that's sort of faintly unhealthy. Like I don't want to be the guy. I don't want a flash car. I don't want to flash clothes. I don't want anything. I want to be anti-flash, right? Like my watch, you can see this. My wife was saying to me last night, maybe time for a new watch. This is a Casio, whatever that one is. It's an F91W. These cost like £10, £15. You can get them at Argos. Have you ever seen that watch before?
I have.
I was listening to a program about Andrew Tate on the way here, a podcast. You know who Andrew Tate is?
Yeah.
Anyway, so Andrew Tate feels like he's that guy reduced to its quintessence, where he's like, one of his catchphrases was, people say, why have you got a, green Bugatti? Do you know this meme? And what does he say to them?
He says, he
says, what colours? I say to them, what colour's your Bugatti? Right? That's him in a nutshell. It's like unapologetically troll-like, ostentatious displays of wealth and arrogance, right? So I'm the anti-Tate. You put that on my gravestone, the anti-Tate. So I'm like, I don't give a fuck about your Bugatti. I think it's embarrassing that you have one. No offense. If you
I don't. I don't have a car.
But fine. And that's kind of a joke. Like my point really is that that's something I need to keep an eye on. Because actually, almost like ostentatious humility is its own poison. Like why are you so wedded to the idea of having a shit watch? By the way, it's not a shit watch. It's completely reliable, and I've never had it. The only thing that goes on it is the strap. So I've got one that's got you can replace the strap. After about 5 years, the strap goes. I've got 2 of these. I'm not bragging. I've got one. I've got my spare one in case I can't find this one. Anyway, last night my wife said, it might be time for a new watch. I've got to embrace, I'm trying to lean into being the guy that isn't showing off about what a not show off he is. You think I've lost the thread? I haven't. The point I'm getting to is that, so I needed to start a company and not, because it's oddly infantilizing after a while. Like there's nothing cool about making like hundreds of hours of TV and not owning any of it, right? That's just me being a little bit of a chump. And partly that's, there's a quid pro quo, I suppose, like, well, you don't get stressed, you turn up, you're making things for a public broadcaster, you're getting a decent salary for sure. But people would say like, why, everyone else, so who do you work for? It's like, well, I'm BBC, I'm on contract. I work from contract to contract 3 years at a time. Like, really? You don't have your own company? Like, no. Why not? Like, because everyone else does. Like Jamie Oliver or Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall or whoever you care to mention, any presenter. Bear Grylls of any longevity would be making their own shows. It's a no-brainer. And I was like, I guess I'm fine doing I'm a creature of habit. That was sort of what I've just sort of fine. I don't want to mess around with it. And then having done it 3 or 4 years ago, like, yeah, I probably should have done it a bit earlier. But it's so it's that thing of the point, which now landing on the point sounds a bit banal, was that you can sort of get in being a creature of habit, being sort of embracing whatever that, your own sense of self as risk averse and conventional. Sometimes, I needed to challenge myself in order to discover that there was a world out there that was sort of more creative, more lucrative, more fun, more adventurous.
You don't seem to be compelled or derive your happiness from like the big wanky stuff, from like the Lamborghini, the Bugatti, the BAFTA.
Yeah, what colour's your Bugatti?
The GQ Man of the Year stuff. You seem to derive it from the simple, intrinsically fulfilling things like, cooking, listening to a thing that's intellectually stimulating. So maybe maybe everyone else is a weirdo and you're actually incredibly normal.
Don't know. I think there's more of us out there than you might think, but maybe not. We're all trapped in our own brains. There's no way of measuring. I do think that, I mentioned that when I saw that I got a nice review in the Times, that gave me as I said, it gave me a buzz.
You cared about your work there.
Yeah.
You really cared about...
Well, that wasn't even about...
Really?
I mean, I do care about the work. I mean, work is a big source of pleasure, like in the sense of either being on location and being aware of it going well and getting into almost like a mindset in an interview of feeling like, yeah, this is all good. Like I feel connected. I feel... Because it's a high stress, in a way, I'm sure you have a little bit, if you have an interview with someone, you feel like you've been trying to book it for a while, the moment comes, you're like, the next 2 hours are really important. You want it to go smoothly. You want it to feel like a revealing encounter. You want to be probing and insightful and attentive and immersed and not distracted, but also thinking ahead and all of that's going on. And then it starts and then you feel like, oh, it's going okay. And then afterwards you're like, that was a good one. And then in the edit, you're putting it together and you're piecing things in like that. All of those, the simple pleasures of craft, like it's really, and it is simple. Like it's no great mystery, but that's a big part of how I connect with, my own happiness.
How do you connect with people? So actually, I wanted to ask you this for my own sort of learning. You've done this for multiple decades. You've sat with people from every corner of the world who have all of these different experiences. And some of them are a little bit, in the nicest sense, a little bit out there. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I landed with a PC word.
Yeah.
A little bit out there.
Wonder what the non-PC word is.
But you have, it was funny, when I asked you about the qualities you have, I think you absolutely nailed it. And all of those make you incredibly disarming. That almost like lack of intense seriousness makes you a really disarming individual. How do you connect with people? How intentional is your approach to connecting with them in your new interview series, but also just generally?
Some of it is stuff that, I just sort of came by accident, probably most of it, which is a thing, natural curiosity, which I think you have, a feeling of just wanting to know why people do the things that they do, right? And sort of getting out of your own way a bit, in the sense, because the question I get asked most often is like, well, how do you not get angry with some of these people, especially the ones who are sort of spewing hate or coming out with stuff that's really objectionable? And I find it a slightly confusing question because I think it's so far from what's in my head most of the time. I'm genuinely thinking like, why, if it is someone like, say, a neo-Nazi or someone involved in religious intolerance, I'm just so curious about what takes someone to that place, what's in their mind, that to actually berate them, to give them a hard time, or even be particularly journalistically confrontational, that's not my default mode.
That's so interesting. Because I just think in life generally, those who like seek to, even in our personal relationships and romantic relationships, those that seek to understand tend to build bridges. But if you seek to, like, as you say, berate, I get told off on this podcast a lot on like Twitter and in the press, like, because I don't berate people. Like when I had Matt Hancock here, I asked him the questions I really wanted to know, but I didn't come to berate him.
No.
He would have gone,
the
wall would have gone up had I done that.
There's other ways of, and some people use a confrontational approach, and that's fine. And then I think in general, there's many ways of doing interviews. And I think probably, I haven't interviewed many politicians, and it's probably related to that, the feeling that they tend to have their guard up. They tend to be follow a strategy of attempting to be as risk averse, headline averse as possible. And it's like, those aren't the people. I'm interested in people who are genuinely who feel like they've got something figured out, or are involved in in a world or a lifestyle or just some situation that is either self-sabotaging or filled with angst. So in the end, I see it as I'm not trying to get one over on people. I'm not trying to. I honestly, most interviews I see as a potential win-win. You know what I mean? Like I sort of think like, well, there's no reason why you shouldn't tell me the truth, and you're involved in something that you're relatively open about, and I'll just assume that that's probably the case. Now, obviously, you're briefed. You've done as much research as you can, but I think if you feel as though you're coming from a position of sort of shared inquiry, then that's contagious. I think also, I sort of tend to think, I think there's some part of me thinks maybe the other person's got it figured out and I haven't, right? A level of humility. So that when they say stuff, I'm genuinely thinking like, well, I guess maybe, or they say something bonkers and I'm like, well, that isn't right. But I enjoy bumping up against that. And I don't go in there thinking I'm going to get this person, like I'm going to get one over on them. I sort of feel as though, you know, you come in and you just sort of try and just see what's going on, you know.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.